Hello and welcome back to another episode of Speak. We are proper excited about this one. Myself and Elisa spend quite a lot of time voice noting each other with ideas and podcasts. Well, not actually things that even begin as podcasts, do they? It's usually a rant or a rave, and they land as content for this wicked podcast. And we had a bit of a voice note exchange, and we were talking about spotlighting people. And it's just something that I think both me and Elisa like to do. It's where there is talent, especially quiet talent, to just doing the do, making a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So we thought we would dedicate a whole episode of Speak to just calling some people out and showing our respect. And this can be people that are working directly in health and safety, near to it, people making a huge difference, or people just doing something differently that we are noticing. So we're dedicating this whole episode of Speak to other people. Any thoughts, Elisa? Anyone want to add before we kick off talking loveliness about lovely people?
Loveliness about lovely people. Yeah, I suppose it is just that thing of giving a hat tip to people that we think are, like you say, making a difference or doing something different. And it's not necessarily like, I think we're going, because also we haven't shared our lists with each other, so we don't know who the other person is going to say. But I suppose I'm expecting it to be a mix of probably well-known names that you would know from LinkedIn or whatever, and then maybe not so well-known names. But I've definitely, like, my list are all probably people you could find on LinkedIn though.
Yeah.
So if you want to go follow them after, and also I hope they don't mind.
Yeah.
I hope they're like, don't fucking talk about me in your podcast.
Why is my name on your lips? Yeah.
Yeah. But like it's meant to be a nice thing.
Yeah. And I think the way we're going to approach this is just we're going to chat as if we were sat on each other's sofa and just talk about how these people are doing their do. So do you want to say one? Do you want to kick off first?
Oh no, I don't know.
You want me to? I'll do it. Okay. So actually I did a post about this person earlier, I think over the weekend, and I think I titled it something like, I love it when people make me feel rubbish at my job. And I met Luke Robinson, who is the HSQE and compliance, I think group head of something of Wincanton. And I hadn't had a lot to do with him before, sort of come across him, but we had a big one-to-one chat recently. And he just is different. He's looking at his team structure different. For example, in his team structure, he has a content creator. It's like, why would we try and use traditional comm streams to traditional ways of working or communicating when it's different and actually it's quite a dry subject, and how do we make it interactive? And he's got like a whole health and safety headquarters. Like, how many companies do you know that have got health and safety headquarters? And that's his drive, his business case, his ambition. And he said something really cool to me as he was talking to me about the structure being different, some roles in his structure being different, the headquarters being different. He was talking to me even about using things like VR. And he said, and we're not using it as a pitch, we're using it. And we're seeing huge difference and huge gains. So not only is he using technology genuinely with meaning, he's just driving an entire business with such a fresh momentum and pace. So I think if anyone gets to work with him, near him, or even have a one-to-one with him, or get him on a panel to talk about their training school, how they do immersive trainings, even things like using different scents in training schools. They've done research around how it enables you to absorb information in a different way. It's just, I just sat listening to him just thinking, oh, wow, it's just different. He's just cut different. So I think not in a eccentric way. I've got some people in my list that are a little bit eccentric, but this is just a true talent. And I think he's phenomenal. So that's my number one. So yeah, and you can find him on LinkedIn.
Well, I'm gonna look him up. Luke, I'm coming to look you up. I'm gonna connect. That sounds fucking class. That sounds really
so
cool.
good.
I want a safety headquarters. This is safe, like you're looking at this safety headquarters in Bantry, West Cork. So I've got like 20 something people on my list, but and it's impossible, and I'm not really ranking them, but I'm going to start saying people, I suppose, as it comes up naturally. So you said that Luke was doing stuff around VR, so immediately Cameron Stevens comes to mind.
Okay.
So Cameron is in Australia, and he is all into like technology, innovation, how you can improve safety with it. He did a fabulous interview on the Slice podcast recently.
Yeah.
100% go listen, especially if you're a bit nervy about like technology, AI, any of that stuff. He really talks about it being human centered and how to bring people on the journey and all that kind of stuff. But then also he posted on LinkedIn actually this morning, I think, about this new role that he's starting with, who was it? Hanson Yuncken, I think. Anyway, one of the construction companies over there. That now this is fascinating. They had a fatality a couple of years ago, and then they had an enforced undertaking from WorkCover or WorkSaver, whoever the enforcement authority is there.
Right.
Part of their undertaking, as part of it, they were like, right, we are going to use technology to link into like worker insights, and they have this whole roadmap on their website. They're very clear about the whole thing. They also had like PhD research done on the back of this, like unbelievable. Like you kind of go, yeah, I think for any company that has the resources, they absolutely should be doing this kind of stuff. But
amazing.
Just, that's a fucking response to a fatality. That is how you do it.
Yeah.
Oh, like, yeah, and now I'm just gone down a rabbit hole on their stuff. But so Cameron, he has a newsletter on LinkedIn where he's like, here's all the latest tech stuff that you need to be on top of. He makes it really digestible, links to different things, and yeah, he is class. So that's my first cab off the rank.
And I shall be immediately stalking him on LinkedIn. Thank you. Yeah. And signing up for that newsletter.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Well, he sounds epic.
Mm.
Another one on my list is Peter Kelly. And Peter Kelly originally worked for a few years in the NHS, did 24 years at HSC as a senior psychologist, and then worked for Mates in Mind for a while, and has actually just started with his own, and I think his company is called Be Kind, something like that. But look him up, Peter Kelly. And the reason he is on my mind at the moment, especially about making a difference, is he is so passionate and driven about basically mental health in general, but particularly he's all over, as you could imagine, the statistics around men's mental health, the fact it's not safe to speak, the construction suicide rates, things like that. And he really, really wants to make a difference. And I just think what he's doing and how he's driven is really special. And having spent some time with Peter, it's not a job. It's not just like, well, I work in wellbeing and I work in mental health and that's what I do. He has such integrity around what he wants to deliver. And I would say, if anyone, I know his business will kick off in a big way. So if anybody's looking for an organizational psychologist or to get under particularly things like suicide stats or mental health at work, call him, follow him, follow his contact, make contact. So I really think he's just doing something different. He's doing with such purpose. So I really, really rate him.
Oh, Peter Kelly.
Peter Kelly.
That leads me on to, can I go two in a row? Because they're kind of, okay. So around the whole mental health well-being thing, there is this fella called Gareth Beck.
All right.
So Gareth is in New Zealand. I think he might be English, living in New Zealand.
What a guy.
And yeah, and he's just really well versed in the mental health and well-being stuff. Does some great posts, has been really active on it over the last couple of years. So really, really good guy to follow for that kind of stuff. And again, that kind of really open about stuff that I suppose in a way you wouldn't be used to seeing men be. So he's kind of a
Nice.
great kind of example. I think he really leads by example and that stuff. And
Nice.
then the second guy is an Aussie guy called Edward Ross. Now, Edward Ross, I think he was a tradie, carpenter or something, chippy, but himself and his buddy started up this charity called Trade Mutt.
Right.
Trade Mutt. And then there's another section called This is a Conversation Starter. So TIACS. But they do these fabulous shirts. They're like these really loud. So it's not so much a thing here in the UK, but the high vis shirts that are like yellow on top and navy on bottom, or like orange on top and navy sleeves. But where they're traditionally navy, they have got like Hawaiian prints or like strawberries or watermelons, all this kind of stuff all over them. They are, I covet these shirts. But they're I think the sale of the shirts go to, then they have this whole helpline, and again it's for men's mental health in construction, and they're just class, and also they're fucking hilarious. Some of their marketing stuff on LinkedIn is gas. So definitely Edward Ross from Trade Mutt, give him a follow.
Amazing. Staying on that mental health thing actually for a minute, on my list is Heather Beach. And she is somebody that people will recognize and will have seen content from. She's very active on social media. But the reason that she stays on my mind such a lot, and I think she is an epic individual making a difference. I've never really seen somebody push themselves to learn constantly in the way that she does. And I've seen quite a few people. So she was the editor, and she managed HSP for a while at the HS Expo, all those sorts of things. And so she was fantastic in that space. Had spent so much time with health and safety professionals and wellbeing professionals. She was like, I actually want to be in this. And I've seen so many people jump from one side to the other side, get a sort of base knowledge, and then sell it. And just, I'm a consultant now, I've done the basics, and this is my version of the truth. And I would say, having listened to Heather speak in so many different places, she will never, ever profess to being an expert, although would outshine most people in a room now. But also her thirst for wanting more. If you're asking a question, if you're making a comment, if you're giving something, it's not washing over her. She's taking it in and digesting it so that she can do a better job in the next wellbeing space that she's in, so she can deliver a better outcome for those that she's affecting. And I just also really admire her vulnerability. She's a strong, outspoken woman, and we need more of those, quite simply. And I just think she's quite a phenomenal example of own your space, don't stay in your lane, screw that, right? If you are interested and you know you can add value, get out of your lane, jump into another one. So I think she's just a really good example of humility, never ending want to learn more, and then what she is delivering in the spaces she's delivering is bloody good. So yeah, I rate that. That's a follow, but I think most people probably listen to us would already know who Heather is, but if you don't, check her out.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so on theme of badass women then, my next person is Marion Kiley. So Marion, I first met through an IOSH event in Ireland. Actually, she had set up a conference here, I think it was like March 2020. And she actually arranged for another person on my list, Maeve O'Loughlin, to come and speak at it. So I was like, well, this is all fucking cool. But also Marion is a lecturer in University College Cork, where I had done my qualification a couple of years ago, and she is streets ahead of every other lecturer on that course. Like, most people have heard me giving out about the quality of what we're teaching safety professionals, all this kind of stuff. She is the exception to that rule.
But no, go back to the archives of Speak and find the curriculum one if you want to know. If you want to hear some hate speech on bad lecturers.
Yeah, definitely. But so yeah, like really all her lectures were always so interesting, so engaging, but also she was a big proponent of actual safety science. So she'd be like, go and find the research, understand it, pick it apart for yourself, create, like, a big proponent of read all the things and form your own opinion.
Yeah.
And also a big proponent of having a reflective practice for every safety professional. Like there was a book, and I think it's actually called Reflecting for the Safety Professional or something like that. But that was another book she recommended, and it was this thing of we need to really be in tune with how we're doing ourselves, how we're progressing, how we're learning, all these kind of things, and just to really turn out smashy professionals. So Marion Kiley, give her a follow.
Love that. I will definitely be following her.
Even though, to be fair, I think she doesn't really play around on LinkedIn that much, but she's on there.
Yeah, if you want to know who she is. So D ARP was on my list, and maybe it's one of them quiet champions again. You probably won't hear loads from her. You'll see her tagged in stuff and at awards. So D ARP, she is on LinkedIn, and it's literally DEE space ARP. And she is the Chief Operating Officer of NEBOSH. She has been there forever with passion and absolute love for the profession and the business. But I had some interactions with her, I don't know when, it would have been the year before last, and she'd come across a lady who'd lost her brother in an accident as a result of poor health and safety practice. And with this lady, so when you work in safety and you hear awful stories, you can listen, you can act, you can respond, you can do whatever. But Dee actually went out of her way to say, let's give away our courses around the world to those in need, to those who live in countries that possibly can't afford it, those in communities that can't afford it. We shouldn't actually be curtailing parts of our country or other countries from getting the skills they need to be better, just because they can't afford it. So she went ahead and collated 1 million applications. And while I was waiting for take a sample, pick 50 or whatever, it was, there is 5 of us for a reason. There was hundreds of applications. Take your time, make a short list, come to the call, justify why this person deserves it, why the community behind them deserves it. We need to really ensure that if we're giving this to somebody, it's the most important placement that we can give free education to. And she brought the lady on the call who'd lost her brother, and Dee was bawling. So was I, so was the lady. And I just thought, imagine working somewhere for so long and still having 100% heart, still looking for how you can help, still looking for how you can give it away to those in need. And actually, I've interacted with her a couple of these awards dues and stuff, and she's so humble, she's so quiet, and yet making a difference to people without showing, without telling anyone, just behind the scenes doing it. And I think she's absolute magic. And she's actually she has somebody who works for her called Matt Powell Howard as well, and together they're just such a fantastic team. And I really do, I feel quite inspired by Dee. So yeah, she's a magic one, so she makes a real difference, I think.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's unreal.
Yeah. And there's so many people that are on LinkedIn posting about what they are doing, or there's like really gross videos of some millionaire giving £100 or a meal to a homeless person, but like recording while they're doing the disgusting nature of that, which is, I need to be seen to be doing this thing. There are these just like wonderful humans like Dee. Thank God there is.
Oh, there is. When you were speaking about Dee being so, I suppose, emotionally invested and things like that, that definitely reminded me of someone on my list, and that is Jill Kernick. So Jill wrote a book a couple of years ago called Catastrophe and Systemic Change, Learning from the Grenfell Tower Fire and Other Disasters.
Oof.
Unbelievable book.
Yeah.
Jill, I think Jill actually used to live in Grenfell Tower a couple of years before it happened.
Wow.
But she has been an absolute champion when it comes to Grenfell, sharing the learnings. She's followed, obviously she wrote a book on it, but she followed the whole inquest and everything, which I was lucky enough to be on a workshop where Jill was kind of the keynote speaker on an event through the Health and Safety Network.
Wow.
And she came on and she told us about kind of, I suppose, her background and how she got involved. Obviously why Grenfell is so dear to her heart. And she got quite emotional as well while telling it, obviously, but you know, just I suppose some of the absolute horrific detail then that came out through the inquest, and there were people that she knew. But she is now an absolute, I suppose, champion when it comes to calling out stuff around building compliance and all that kind of thing. And that wasn't her background.
Wow.
But yeah, and I think she's now with Arup, I think. Is that where James Pomeroy is? I think that's where she's working now, but well worth a follow, buy and read her book.
I will.
So that is Jill Kernick.
I love everybody on your list I haven't heard of. I love it.
Yeah, I was thinking that's going to happen.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that I love about this podcast is that we are such similar people with our brains are in such different places, absorbing so much information. Imagine that how much the audience will get out of haven't heard of them. I really do. I love it. Brilliant. I had on here Nathan Haidt, and I wanted to make sure that I called this guy out. So he is the co-founder of Say 365. And for full disclosure, I do some work with them. And the reason I do is this. They basically have, we always promise not to do talking about things like products or whatever, but it's the founding story of their business. So Nathan started his career in safety in a fairly sort of left field space. So he was a lifesaver, physical lifesaver on the beaches of New Zealand, and very early on had witnessed, had basically been part of somebody passing away and saving somebody, really short space of time. And sometimes you meet these people and you just think, how do you get the power, the internal power to do this? At a very young age, he'd experienced this and just thought, right, the standards across the world in life-saving are not enough. People are dying. And then basically set about dedicating his life for decades, changing everything, all the rules, all the process around life-saving. And when I met him and he was talking me through this, I just thought, you meet some people that experience something and they can just turn it into such energy for good. And, you know, like Jill, you're talking about this is a serious event in her world. And she's used it to teach people how to take learnings from catastrophe. Mm-hmm. And this was the reason that he started forming Say 365 and the safety index that this sort of maturity model. And I just think he is exceptional. And we always say that we're not going to talk too much about the models and things like that. But I think what he has created and some of the calls they've made from a business perspective, I think are quite special. Typically the things that I see in the UK, I don't know what it's like around the world, haven't worked anywhere else, is people tend to create a system that will then push consultancy. So you'll then like make money out of like, you now need my help. Now you know what your areas are. You now need me. And they made some calls about it being about each organization helping themselves. And I just think creating something that is about an organization understanding its own flaws and then teaching it to help itself rather than make something that is just about pushing a secondary service is unheard of. And the tool is, I think, excellent and built with heart. So I think Nathan Haidt is a really special man. And he's one of a double act. So other co-founder is Mark Kidd, but this system being created in a garage by this guy who's helped change the world of life-saving, I just think he's a bit special. So you can also follow him on LinkedIn.
Oh, nice one. Nathan Haidt. How do you spell Haidt? Is it like
Hight?
Right. Okay. Okay. So next one on my list, again, in order of preference, but when you're speaking there about someone who just like really good kind of like business sense, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Pete Rushmer. So Pete, I don't know Pete that well. I've met him a handful of times, like 2 or 3 times, again, through the Health and Safety Network when it was Project Millennium. But Pete has, he has a business around, Jesus, I should have looked this up. I should have looked up the name beforehand. Hang on. Pete Rushmer, there he is. Fleet Geeks. So his actual business name is Flagship Partners, but Pete also has a podcast called A Half a Dozen Things and Fleet Geeks. So basically, if you are in like logistics, anything to do with like trucks, truck drivers, all that kind of crack, Pete's the guy.
Nice.
He puts the content out there. And he's been building his business steadily over the last couple of years. And I've been watching him just being like, you're fucking cool. But he also has, it's like he started out with like the fleet stuff. And then he did a lot around mental health as well, men's mental health. He would jump on and do like live webinars on his lunchtime, things like that. But yeah, he's just fucking cool. So Pete Rushmer, Flagship Partners / Fleet Geeks, anyone in kind of logistics, anything like that, you gotta be following this guy.
David, DL, if you are listening, you know what I'm going to ask you to do tomorrow. Amazing. So I had on here it's sort of group of 2. So it's legal space, but health and safety legal space. Kizzy Augusta, and she is the partner at Mishkondareya, an absolutely incredibly prestigious firm. I think still handles the estate of Princess Diana. How prestigious. And she is a partner there. Yeah. And heads up that whole health and safety space for that organization. And there is something, I said this earlier, about loud and proud women. And there are some people that you sit back and you think it's all possible. They make you feel like it is all hot. Doesn't matter what your aim is, doesn't matter what you want to do, it's goddamn possible. And Kizzy is just one of those women. And she is generous with her time, encouraging, humble, competent to within an inch of her life, if not more so. But I even had the pleasure of debating something legal with her about, I don't know, it would have been last week. We actually went for dinner. And the first time I've ever managed to go for something to eat with this woman after I've been literally like stalking her and working with her with Louise Hoskins. And she's just not satisfied with anything that's not excellent.
I'm definitely going to go follow Kizzy because she sounds like my kind of person.
Yeah. And then it includes for herself anything that is not. And when you talk to her about career and about drive and about all these things, you leave her presence feeling like, yeah, me too, I can do it. And you feel revved. So I just think she is a sky's the limit person. And if you're around her, you feel the same. And the fact that she's heading up a health and safety legal space as a partner and she's just doing it in the most smashy way ever. I just love her. I think she's excellent.
Nice. Kizzy.
Yeah.
Kizzy, connection request incoming.
And then kind of connected to that, if you don't mind, is someone that is the beginning part of that career piece, still legal space, not actually health and safety space, but she has a lot of she's a health and safety, she's a lawyer apprentice. Her name is Maya Crockford, and I'll tell you why she is different. So she started a legal apprenticeship and was not satisfied with the fact that she knew about legal apprenticeship. She's like, how do I let the world know? Because there are so many backgrounds that don't have the money to go and study law, to go to the university, to do the thing. How do I get it out there? And I think this is what the next generation are going to bring. I'll be really honest with you. She's got like a full Instagram following, a TikTok following. She's got tens of thousands of likes and all these interactions with her posts, because she's basically, I think, kind of single-handedly reinventing what law looks like. And she is doing it so there's full exposure for the apprenticeship process. She's even written a small book. She's like 22 or something, and she's just blowing my mind. And I suppose the reason I'm calling her out is there are some people that you meet in life and you just think, oh, you're going to hit stars somewhere. And I don't know where you're going to end up. I don't know what you're going to end up doing, but I kind of hope it's in our space. Right? Because
just direct her site.
Just in
Come on
here.
in. Come on, Maya.
Yeah. So legal space, that's the legal space. But on the other end of the spectrum, she's starting out, but just phenomenal. And definitely telling us what the next generation are going to be making work look like. So yeah.
Class. Next person on my list, and I mentioned her earlier, and I wouldn't be surprised if she was on your list as well. Is she on your Maeve O'Loughlin?
Yes, go for it.
So Maeve is a global HSC and culture lead at Spitzer. Is that how you pronounce it?
I think so.
But yeah, I mentioned earlier I first came across Maeve at an IOSH event that she was speaking at, and you know, one of those people that you go, she just knows her shit.
Yeah.
Just knows her shit. She just and has this kind of a calm confidence about her.
Yeah.
And doesn't often post on LinkedIn, but when she does, it's always fucking gold. I'm like, more Maeve, please. So yeah. And I just want to be friends with Maeve.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. But I think the same. So I have I see quite a lot in a WhatsApp group by Diane, who, this is a lovely segue into my next person. And yeah, she's just, it's ridiculous how talented and knows her shit she is. Like, I don't think I've ever met anyone quite like it. So highly endorse that one. And then this leads beautifully on to Diane Chadwick Jones, who retired from BP and headed up safety. And there is something about the fact that she is retired and she dedicates her world, her life, to ensuring the profession is connecting great people, that we're sharing and germinating and like just making each other better all the time. And she even mentors a bunch of people and connects people that have problems with people that can help solve them. And I'm like, when I retire, I don't think in my head, I'm like, you won't see me for dust. I will probably end up a Diane, trying to help everybody all the time. But her purpose is safety, because even when she has the option to not, she is just doing so much. And this is a quietly behind the scenes, and you'll see her at sort of keynotes and things like that. But even I met Maeve a couple of times through different rooms, through sort of Reef Denier a couple of times, and actually being part of this hive mind thing that she created, I've learned so much. And not just from Maeve, who's in there being phenomenal all the time, but so many people. So I think Diane, dedicated to the long-term good of the profession, magic.
Rightio, that's Diane Chaddock Jones. Look her up. She is on LinkedIn. Right. Next one I have, I don't know this guy at all. Never spoken to him. Don't know this guy. But there's this guy called Rob Fox.
Yep.
Irish guy, and he's got this company called Site Passport, and I'm gonna bastardize what this is about now because I've only been kind of watching from the sidelines. I know there's something to do with blockchain technology in there, so I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
But he is like hell-bent on improving the supply chain in the construction industry, like traceability, like all this kind of stuff. And I've followed him on LinkedIn for a couple of years, and I've just watched him kind of chipping away. And then I only when I was putting together this list, I was like, oh, I want to see what Rob Fox is up to. And since the last time I went looking at his page, they've got like seed funding, and now the Construction Industry Federation in Ireland is on board, and it's like it's fucking happening. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, and I just I only half understand what he's doing, but I'm like, I think I might like this. So if you're in procurement or anything in construction in Ireland, any of those, I'm going to say any of the tier ones up there, they probably already know him. But yeah, Rob Fox.
Amazing. Do you know what? We're doing so well on our lists.
We are. I'm like, let's just keep plowing away through it.
Let's just do this. So I actually had Peter Jenkins.
Peter!
On my list. Yeah. And we both know Peter really well and have been for many drinks and had many drinks and conversations with Peter. But he's on my list as one of those people that you just know will end up somewhere magic. I don't know anyone with a mind like his. I don't know anyone that takes it. I don't know anyone as intelligent as him, to the point that sometimes he speaks and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
There's nobody as intelligent as Peter Jenkins.
100%. 100%. So, and I love that he is really into safety progression. He's magically passionate about his job, but he's also really passionate about IOSH. He's really passionate about networking. He's really passionate about holistic safety, like how the profession is working, how individuals are working, how he's working. And he is never, ever, he doesn't ever slow down on self-improvement either. And he's heading up, he's the head of safety for Stagecoach now, and he was head of safety for a national food company before. But I can't wait to see where he ends up. I can't wait to be nearly retired and to look round at somebody that's, I don't know, he's probably embarrassingly younger than me, whatever, and just to see what he's achieved, because I know it will be special. And he does post a fair bit on LinkedIn, good questions, stimulates debate and conversation, and actually is starting to become present on things like panels. And I would say, if you want to see what crazy talent plus crazy intelligence adds, and you have a good dictionary,
yes.
Follow and also get out and see him.
I just remembered, like, the first week of Peter's new role at Stagecoach, I was actually over with you, and we were half caught on the back of a bus, and then I was like, we're on a Stagecoach bus, let's send Peter a selfie. Like, congratulations, Peter, I'm on your bus. And he was like, you're pissed. I was like, well, anyway.
Bus beers are a thing. Oh, yeah.
Good times. Good times.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
I've got 3 guys that I'm going to hat tip together.
Yeah.
I don't think they know each other, but they kind of remind me of each other. And that is Richard Brooks, Paul Daly, and Kieran Neary.
So Richard Brooks. Yeah.
Paul Daly and Kieran Neary. And the reason is, I think these 3 guys are the least full of shit people I have ever met.
Oh, I love it.
Or like they are all safety managers doing the do. They
Yeah.
are, and they are so engaged. They are so on top of their shit, and they are really, really, really into improving overall work for the people in their businesses.
Amazing.
And they do not, they just don't talk shit about it. Like they're not here spruiking shite on LinkedIn or anything like that. They're all on there. You can follow them. I don't think you'll see much from them, but they are like every time I speak to them, it makes me want to go back in house and be like, oh, I could do what he's doing and try that in this company. You know, they're really smashy. They're these three lads. Yeah.
Love
So
that. I love that
there.
so much. There is every now and again I'll meet somebody on the tools doing the do, changing the stuff, and I'm like, oh God, I need need. Amazing. So I think we've briefly spoken about this dude before, and I'm going to have to call out because it's the reason for the name of this show. Andrew Gibson, who was my first ever line manager. And the reason I'm calling him out is not only does he work in safety and nuclear safety, and it's fascinating and amazing, he goes absolutely out of his way to ensure, I mean, inclusion is an understatement in Andrew's world, but before it was on political agendas, before it was pushed, before there was training, any of that rubbish, or not rubbish, any of the stuff that's pushed, this is not 2002, when there are no other girls or women around and there is just me. Creating space, safe spaces, creating opportunities for me to learn and not be sidelined. But it's not just about those early moments of my career. Throughout my career, he's come back to me with young female apprentices or people that have joined his team that like, she has such personality, she just needs confidence and lifting, and he's constantly creating space for young women to grow into themselves in a professional workspace in male dominated industry. And I just think he is a proper special guy. So Andrew Gibson. Now he is on LinkedIn, but he doesn't really post or anything. He is a quiet one, but just if you're talking about special people in this industry, he just is one of them.
Oh, Andrew Gibson. Okay, my next one. I'd say we're going to push through to the end of these lists, isn't it?
Do it.
Another. Well, we're coming close to our usual time, but my next one is Sean Brady. And Sean Brady is an Irish guy, but he's living in Queensland. He's a forensic engineer, and he has a consultancy, Brady Haywood. But they had this podcast, the Brady Haywood podcast, where they take apart disasters, and it is so well produced. And like Sean Brady, if you're listening, ASMR level voice this man has, like he's a voice like butter, right? So
yeah.
While it's like he's telling you a story of impending doom, you're like, keep going, Sean, this is lovely. But
what's the podcast called again?
The Brady Haywood podcast.
I'm going to look that up.
It's so good. There's this 3-part series about the Pike River mine disaster in New Zealand. Yeah, it's excellent. And Sean Brady, he does a lot of work as well around kind of mining in Australia, and kind of gets, I think, called in by the government to do like reviews on safety and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
So really knows his shit. And I think he has another podcast called Simplifying Complexity as well, which is really interesting. So yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm writing down complexity because I need a new podcast. Who else did I have all over here? So I think the other person, so I only actually had, I think, 2 other people on my list. And one of them was someone called Chris Clark. And he is the MD of 360 Safety. And I had the pleasure to work for him for a while and as a peer to him for a while. And he basically heads up this consultancy, which is 360 Safety. And I don't know if you've ever had a workspace where it doesn't matter what that boss needs, you just will, because they are epic and they go the extra mile and they make sure that you are content and pushed and challenged and praised. And I would say the whole of the department that were at the rail company that I worked for, they were there solidly, even though the head of was really difficult, even though the business wasn't particularly culturally progressive. They just were there pushing through toffee with him, for him. He is very competent, very pragmatic, and really does try and focus on not just big clients, but small organizations that are struggling to understand what's required of them. Even had something where I met a lady who owned a cleaning company. Somebody had had an accident. She employs like 7 people. And she was like, I don't know who to ask. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I'm panicking. So I said, right, hold on a minute. And I mean, I haven't spoken to Clarky I probably haven't spoken to him in about a year. Picked up the phone and I was like, can you help this lady? She is panicking. Of course. Give her my number. I saw her a week later and she's just like, he solved it. And I now know what I'm doing and I know what it's all about. He's just brilliant. And actually even to the point that I've pulled him into a couple of the orgs that I've worked to do sort of the overhanging safety work, fire risk assessment, and struggling to close out and stuff. Pragmatic, doesn't charge stupid amounts of money like some people can stick a label on safety and try and scaremonger. He's just a wonderful human and a fantastic safety professional and a great boss. I would say in my career, the best boss I've ever had.
Nice.
Yeah, special guy.
Okay, I'm gonna go one more.
Even
though I have more than that, but I'm gonna go one more just because of time.
Yeah.
Last but absolutely no means least is a guy called Jeff Dalto. So that's Jeff. And Jeff is a learning development performance improvement guy from Oregon in the States. And I got to know Jeff a couple of years ago. He started posting on LinkedIn about health and safety, kind of about New View and Safety Differently and things like this. And then he put together this like ebook of all these amazing safety leaders.
Wow.
And like he just tied all this together, and he isn't from a safety background, but I think he saw the whole, I guess saw the similarities between the roles of learning and development and health and safety and where they can kind of tie in. And like he published this ebook, and I suppose full disclosure, he published a second one and asked me to contribute, and I was like, fucking yes, class.
Oh, that's awesome.
But Jeff he's like a champion for the health and safety profession, even though he's not in it. And he's always starting good conversations on LinkedIn. He even started one the other day, and I messaged him. I was like, I haven't seen your stuff in ages, like because of the fucking algorithm. But he was like, I haven't actually been posting that much, but he's so well worth a follow. And if you've any kind of, I would say if you've any kind of queries about that stuff, well, I don't know, he's probably working full time, so maybe don't hassle him. But yeah, he's anyway, he's definitely a good follow on LinkedIn.
Amazing. My last one was one of our mutual friends, Stuart Hughes.
Stuart.
So he was just on with us, having self-invited himself. The reason I put Stuart on here, and I also have like the same as you, which is like this million list. I'm sorry if your name is like, we're going to come back and do another one. Big quarterly, we're going to circle back and do more spotlights. But the reason Stuart's on here is you can go back and listen to the last podcast actually, because he was on it. Listen to the way he thinks about safety, and it's different. And he used a really good example that stuck with me after our podcast last fortnight. And it was somebody saying you can't use ladders because safety said so. And he's like, oh, actually, that's really interesting. And I've seen him in the act actually, and it's very much his approach. That's interesting, because safety also says we can put a man to the edge of the atmosphere and throw him off down to earth. So tell me why you can't use a ladder. And I love, we can get, I think, as safety professionals, especially if you're tall based or close to front line, you get sucked right into the minutiae of what the line says or what the ACOP says or the something. And I find Stuart is zoomed right out at all times. And I mean, I don't know what he's like at the minutiae stuff or the local stuff, but in terms of that zoom out approach and the why and why can't we do it differently, I think it's magic. And he actually said something to me that I use probably once a month. Yeah, I still probably say it once a month, which is, we shouldn't be saying no, we should be saying how. And he was talking to me about this big incident that happened somewhere where he worked, and they'd taken all the right precautions, and then the operation were like, oh, these precautions are just a bit annoying. Can we take them away? Or can we put people closer to the precautions? And he was like, cool, that's great. Tell me how. Tell me how we can have people closer to the precautions without having that risk happening again. And 100%, like, let's do it together. And he said, well, to this day, they haven't come back with a way to do it yet. But the day they do, we will. Because it's not my job to stop an operation working. It's my job to say, if you really need that thing to happen, let's talk about how we can do it. And I just really love his zoom out approach, his line of questioning. It's so unaggressive, but challenging all the same. So I think he's probably one of those that I said at the beginning, where he'll end up somewhere. I mean, he's somewhere big now. He's working for a very big brand, but where he could go from there, I would love to see him managing a large safety team and pushing that knowledge into the profession of not no, but how, you know, why are we saying no to simple things? Why can't we just mitigate and do it and do everything as best that we can and accept that risk exists? So massive shout out to him and to the previous. Please go into our archives and find our last podcast. So yeah, I really rate Stuart zoom out.
Cool. Happy days. Well, that, like I said, didn't get to everyone on the list, but we actually covered way more than we thought we would, I think.
For sure.
So I thought we were going to tangent off of every single one of them. So
we were very respectful of each other's lists.
Very good. Like we did well. Bula boss for us. So okay, well, we'll wrap it there. And thanks so much for joining us. And we will catch you the next time on Speak.